Hey everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and today is the 115th episode of the Prove It Live podcast. We have a very special return guest, one of my favorite guests of all time, Jason Colleran, a guy much smarter than me, which, not to toot my own horn, is saying a little
Not a very
bit.
high bar.
Well, shush, I was trying to, anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my very annoying and very handsome co-host, Mr. Mike Frary. Mike?
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad that my little slight didn't dissuade you from
I
talking
can
about
take
my remarkable
I can
good
I
looks.
can I can take it. Yeah. I'm a big boy. I'm a big boy.
You are a big
So
boy.
big
I'm a
show today. We got a big
big show.
show. Big show today. So we have Jason with us. Jason Colleran is the developer, marketer, user, professor of the Kinetic Arm, which if you have not seen that, you need to. It is a dynamic, I'm going to call it for maybe my clinicians, a dynamic adaptive brace that helps position the shoulder in good anatomical position so that you can throw without fear of injury and pain. How's that sound, Jason? Is that good? Can you hire me on the marketing team?
It's a good start. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of potential applications. It's a good
All right.
start.
So, Jason, why don't you tell the audience again who you are, what you do, and thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I'm Jason Colleran, the founder of the Kinetic Arm. So it gives us the ability to offload stress externally. So if we think about it, baseball's failing big time. You got research that shows over 50% of adolescents report elbow or shoulder pain at some point during a competitive season, making them 7.5 times more likely to have injury or surgery down the road. So that'd be pretty significant, even if it doubled their risk, but 7.5 times is pretty high. Then we see, according to Baseball Prospectus, elbow and shoulder injuries are up 44% in Major League Baseball this past season. So what's sad is they still don't have it figured out at the top. All these coaches are emulating what those guys do, and the injury rate keeps going up.
And
So with the
not only pitchers.
yeah, position players. We've got a lot of position players too that we're hearing about, TJ's labrum tears. But now we have the ability to offload stress externally, which is something we've never done. And I was watching a documentary about the invention of the glove by, A.G. Spalding wasn't the first, but in the 1870s, they realized, okay, our hands and our fingers keep breaking from the impact. So we probably need a glove, So now it's the same thing. So that's like a compression force. But when we're talking about throwing that dynamic motion, that's more of a distraction force. So now we have a way to offload stress from the arm.
It's a great invention. I've used it. I've got video of my clients using it. They love it. And it's such a unique fitting, and the shoulder is a crazy joint, as we know. It's got all this kind of movement, and this brace is able to give compression throughout the entire range of motion, and which is a pretty spectacular invention. So, Jason, what is going on? I mean, like you just said, the injury. I mean, we just limped into the World Series, right? Where we had two teams that literally had a combined total of 4.5 healthy starters. We'll say we'll give Scherzer a half a point. So the rest of the team didn't survive. My New York Yankees went through 9 starters, only one surviving, and losing their top center field prospect for next year. Michael King last year threw a pitch and broke his elbow. What is going on out there? What are you seeing? And more importantly, why?
I think it's a big, I always joke and say we're dealing with grown men that don't wash their socks for good luck, and I was one of them. So I don't mean that, to be offensive. We're superstitious. Yes, it's a big mental game, but even at the highest level, these guys, a lot of the trainers are beginners. They're not getting paid much, and they don't have the experience. I actually just got kicked out of a group. I think it was professional baseball drills and advice. I don't give comments. I just kind of spectate. But this guy is talking about the bicep ligaments and how push-ups are dangerous. First of all, as you guys know, biceps don't have ligaments. So if that's the quality of advice given in these professional groups,
I thought I missed that class. Woo!
Good. But this guy's got his RSCC and he was with a professional baseball team.
Wow.
This is how low the standard is.
Wow.
So
what was he saying? Biceps have ligament. Finish your thought. What was he saying?
What?
What was he saying? I want to hear this. So finish your thought on the bicep ligament.
So then he's saying how, the bicep ligaments and how push-ups are dangerous for kids and pull-ups and dead hangs are the best. Well, first of all, what's the position? What's the motion? What's the range? Are we offloading stress? So it's an incredibly stupid thing to say, to put it nicely. But then talking about how pull-ups and dead hangs are the best. Okay, where do those forearm flexors connect, or where are they attached? Probably the same place we're getting little league elbow and avulsion fractures.
Right.
So we want that extra stress, and they don't even understand frequency, intensity, duration. And yes, we need that intermittent stress for an adaptation, but to make blanket statements like that and speak in absolutes, it just blows my mind that they don't have the ability to think for themselves. So they keep regurgitating this stuff from an old textbook or from, someone in the organization that probably should have been gone a long time ago. But I mean, the injury numbers show everything that we need to know. As a whole, baseball is failing. And it's this, now water bags is a big thing. Look,
Oh
it
my
has
God.
mass. They obviously don't understand inertia, but using something like that for rotational training. And I'll ask, I was out, in Arizona with a professional team, asking some of their strength guys that were real big on them. And I told the pitching coach, my thoughts. And they said, "Oh, why do you think that?" I said, "Well, can you tell me what the axis is? Can you tell me the line of force? Can you tell me the point of application of force? Can you give me a resistance profile for where that changes throughout the range?" And they looked at me like I was speaking another language. And this is who they're trusting with millions, $1 million athletes. It's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. These guys shouldn't be working in a LA Fitness.
Nope. When I was with my only professional experience, I was the, trainer therapist of the now defunct Nashville Pride independent team. But the good thing in the 2 years I was there, they had a lot of, independent ball, for those who don't know, has a lot of major league castaways. So I actually had 2 first-round draft picks and 3 guys that saw major league time in the pitching. And this is when I first really got into this heavy, when I was like, oh yeah, you played for the Yankees, you're the Indians, you're Texas. Let me see your strength and conditioning programs. And on my kid's life, if I would do 50%, I wouldn't even do. The other 25%, I would do just the opposite. And maybe 20 to 25% with modification. I would say okay. But there's none of the books, I can tell you, Yankees, Indians, Braves, Milwaukee, none of their pitching books would I ever give to someone and say do, because I'd be handing them something that would injure them. And that's a fact. And I see it. I see it on social media. I see it constantly. And like you said, you got kicked out of the group, right? So anyone who says, no one wants to discuss, right? They just like, again, Tom House, why are you dragging your foot? Why are you stopping pelvic rotation and spinal rotation to go forward? Boom, out of the group. It's crazy.
We know what he has his PhD in, right?
It's like psychology, right?
Psychology.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
which is fine. Which is fine,
yeah,
but
which is great.
which
But when I
is
ask
great. But when he says Dr. Tom House, and he never puts the initials as to what he's a doctor of, which is misleading.
and I'm sure he's got some great experience, some great information, but things evolve. I saw
Yeah.
a comment in another group, this old MLB pitcher, Kip Gross. He put that, Babe Ruth didn't do it, I don't teach it. Incredibly stupid. Babe Ruth was drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes at 8 years old. What kind of cancer did he die of? But the fact that his brain, this MLB guy's brain and thought process hasn't evolved at all, and this is who people are looking to for advice, is really disappointing.
And he was fat and he was out of shape, but
Yeah,
but then,
womanizer, the whole,
yeah,
was it
the whole
Bulgarian
nine,
life,
the
all that
whole
stuff.
9 yards.
Teach kids that. That's a good idea.
But
It's insane.
what scares Mike and I is really the position players, right? Because their load management is so significantly less than a pitcher, right? So that means they're probably doing the same, these ridiculous parabola long toss things, these reverse throws, these plyo ball things, and in probably 1/20th of the amount of throws, they're blowing out, and they're playing every day. So their loss to the team, like Jason Dominguez, is literally his loss to the New York Yankees, is going to reshape their entire team for next year. Like, do they have to go and get a Shohei Ohtani? Do they have to go and spend another 200 and 300 million dollars to fill that space for a year and a half until this kid comes back? I mean, he's 20, 21 years old. He was going to be a starting center field. He was the next Mickey Mantle, right? And boom, it's insane to me.
Well,
Wouldn't it be?
go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, wouldn't it be incredible if there was just a slight shift in the thought process of, let's bring in some better specialists who are more qualified so these athletes last, instead of watching them blow out and throwing more money to try to get new ones. Wouldn't that be
Let's
incredible?
just ask why. Have a team of people. Why? Why do you think? Why do you think?
Well, I can tell you something that I see all the time, right? And so just involved in development and training. There's this like idea that if it's not unique, it's not effective.
That's
You know,
really,
so
that's very
so if
good.
it's, you know, if you're not like, you know, like you said, throwing water bags around or whatever, it's old, ineffective, doesn't work. And it sounds so cliche, but just the basic roots of, like Kevin says all the time about human movement, is completely ignored. You know, doing all these things that, you know, some of them, and this is just from a mechanical point of view in terms of baseball mechanics, biomechanics, some things may be effective for a more advanced player if they have A, B, and C down, you know, basic movements, but they don't. And when you bring that to throwing and pitching, and you're skipping the sequential motion, you're skipping, you know, all these big muscles, like you're going to get hurt. And it's you know, I see it all the time. You know, we get kids. I've had kids that come in from big name, you know, trainers from around here, and they can't squat. They can't do a basic body squat. And I'm not kidding. Like they can't get, you know, more than 10 degrees. It's bad without lunging, you know, bending their knees forward, going up into the balls of their feet. You know, but they're on a squat rack, you know, 2-3 days, 2-3 times a week.
Yep.
You know,
I had a basketball player from Quinnipiac who I fixed over the summer and came back. He's like, yeah, man, I'm getting this patellofemoral pain. I'm like, you know, he had Achilles tendon. I fixed that. And he's like, yeah, it really happens when I squat. And I'm like, well, your squat was so good. Well, you know, he left me doing body weight squats. Of course, he goes to, you know, QU, and of course, immediately they throw him on the squat rack. So I'm like, all right, well, let me look at your squat, but just the bar. So he's all right. Well, I need two weights first. I'm like, for what? Oh, for to put under my heels. I'm like, oh my God, dude, are you insane? So here we are, like he's putting all of the pressure on his patellofemoral joint. Of course, when he goes into a heel raise, what does that do? Well, it makes makes him move his knees first. Voila, there's the problem. And these are Division I trainers, but like you said, it's usually the lowest paid position, right? It's as far as I'm concerned, as we have seen in sports in the last 15 years, it is the most important position and paid the least amount. Like you'd say, coach, the Celtics could have all the great coaches, but if they only have 7 guys out of 15 that are healthy, what does it matter?
yeah.
It's mind blowing that there's no, I don't want to say standard of care or measure of success, because they all say what we're doing is working. Is it? If you had any soft tissue injuries, I don't think it's working.
Right. Or they won't tell you.
If that's working, could you be doing better? Because at the young levels, that player may have, you know, had the durability to get through that season with that terrible training, but what happens next season or the season after that? And if we think about the repetitive micro trauma or the fraying or magnifying those compensation patterns or the adaptations to terrible movement, then we're definitely going to get the blowout. I think looking back to, I haven't heard anybody else bring this up, but someone like Bryce Harper, remember when he hyperextended his knee going into first base?
Mm-hmm.
I bet not a single one of them looked at his active hip internal and external range, which caused his arm to work harder. Because I've had guys here, you know, at the pro level or high level college they're from some of the, you know, biggest name orthopedic groups, biggest name, you know, physical therapy groups. So they clear them to throw because they stretched and beat up their arm so they have enough range of motion, right? They come in, I say, did they look at your trunk? No.
Nope.
They have no active trunk rotation to their throwing side. Could that be a mechanism that potentially caused it and maybe why they're not making progress on their return to throw program? Yes. Then there's an issue with, rotating to the other side. Then we find on their hip, they have no active internal or external on their drive leg. And sometimes it's on the lead leg as well. But these are things that stand out and they're so obvious they don't even know what to look for. And then you've got the popular social media people. I had an athlete come here from Texas. He's seeing one of the popular, mobility flows guy, biotentegrity, all these big words. So he's seeing him and another trendy mobility person on social media. The dude had no active internal or external on his rear hip. So what good is it doing forcing and smashing that leg into a range, trying to do a seated 90-90 stretch where structurally you don't even have that? What good is that doing? Because when I saw him, it tightened up again. So what good do they really think this is doing? You're just causing muscle inhibition and impingement, making it worse. So that's why more arms are blowing out.
So I had seen a video. You're posted, I'm gonna say. I saw a Tom House video where they had talked about training deceleration, and I call this the Ferris Bueller training mechanism, because what they were doing is running backwards. So that's going to help deceleration. So it's kind of like, I say Ferris Bueller because if you remember the movie, they tried to rewind the car to bring the odometer back. So running backwards, running forwards is still a concentric activity, not eccentric. So I said, well, why aren't you working on squat? And one of the cronies, well, what does squat have to do with arm or shoulder? And then of course I've got this, I've got this great video of, this average Joe that I just filmed one day who had shoulder was stuck. And I'm like, oh, your SI joint is out of place. And this is all on film. Put his SI joint back in place, fired up some back extensors, some glute sets, and oh, voila, the shoulder went all the way back. I mean, you have to understand that the body is literally always in fight or flight mode. It's always trying to protect itself. And when something's wrong in the hip, do you think the next door neighbor, the shoulder's not going to know about it? It knows, okay? It's not going to let you do something where it's going to harm you. It's going to try to contract. It's going to try to tighten because that's what the body does. That's simple. I mean, I'm a simple guy. That's a simple answer to it.
So I have a question. So the info is out there, right? I mean, we live in, a time where
it's a
all of the information of the world is at our fingertips, right?
Yes.
And it's not a money problem. I mean, these big leagues, especially talking with the big league teams and even the bigger universities, it's not a money issue. So what is it? Like, what is it that prevents these? I mean, because the numbers are obviously just so in your face. I mean, Jason, Kevin, and I at one point looked at the injuries, the rate increasing from year to year, and it's gone up literally every year from, we went back to, I think, 2004, every single year, and almost exponential in some cases. So is it more that it's a cost of doing business? I mean, are they looking at, are they sort of trying to grab the shiny object, velocity, right? Arm strength is what they, for what they're calling it. And just figuring that, hey, I'll get a guy, he'll throw 105 for us, but we might only have it for 2 years. It's a cost of doing business. And there are, is it potentially that they don't even care about the health of the pitchers?
I think, yeah, it's definitely a shuffle, and they've got plenty of guys behind them, that'll take their place, which is unfortunate that that's the thought process. But I was having a conversation with Brittany Dowling yesterday, and I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was something like it was 7% of pitches that were fastballs during one of the games from one of the pitchers. So they're chasing velocity, want to throw as hard as possible, and you hit the nail on the head. It's like a fishing lure. They're like fish chasing this lure. And the faster you chase it, the faster you're going to burn out. And let's say, okay, you do get that. But if we look at, I would love to see some follow-up to these trendy velocity-based training programs and how soon after those guys blew their arms out. I know for a fact with one organization that got 6 or 7 of them, I think it was last year, all of their arms blew out. So they ramp them up too early. They post about it for marketing and say, we can get you from this to this. And not to mention, one of them they were bragging about never threw a single pitch in college baseball because his arm blew out twice. So it's what you don't see. And then I always say, like, the loudest fart gets the most attention. Those are the social media guys, because they're really just spewing bullshit. And if they have that much time to do it on social media, I can tell you firsthand, they're not doing it in real life. I've seen it
No,
plenty of times, and
No.
I certainly don't have time to keep doing that and promoting. But yeah, I think it's unfortunate. It's kind of a popularity contest. And what people need to realize is, just because they're training those athletes, they just met them, or they've had them for a year,
Right.
playing baseball 15, 20, 25 years before that. So stop thinking that that person should get the credit when
Yeah.
maybe they just got lucky. Maybe they got, that athlete, and they just happen to not get injured for one more season.
That happens a lot, by the way. From, in my world, it's a kid hits a level of maturity that he was bound to hit no matter what, no matter who he was with, and they take the credit for it. And you're right. And I've seen kids like they miss an entire season, important season. I've had a kid miss his entire junior season. This kid was a prospect, and didn't pitch that summer either. Missed an entire year. But he had a 97 running gun. That's
yeah,
you know
a lot of good it does them. But
exactly.
I think we might be seeing a turn in the trend. We had both the head coach and the pitching coach from Montreat College on. I did a camp there back in the end of September. 20 pitchers, 6 of them hurt. Tommy John, all coming from the drive line to Tom House. Failed every single one of my shoulder tests. Had no scapular depressors. Couldn't do a proper squats. In the weight room, squatting 300 pounds on a back that loses its lordosis. So, but these coaches, they were open minded. They listened. They implemented absolutely everything that I said, which is great. But like Mike said, why aren't major league teams doing anything about it? Well, now it's starting to cost colleges money, because if you go and you blow out, you're insurance, the colleges are on the hook for that. And these guys are saying, our premiums are going through the roof. We need to do something, or we're going to get dropped, or we won't be able to afford the insurance to insure these players. And, and these high school kids that are, COVID has set the recruiting process back. I guess JUCO if you went to JUCO for 2 years, that's all wiped out. That's like you never played. So it's more than 2 years. It might be 3 or 4 that they were saying the high school senior, they're like the last person on the recruiting, because why would you pick a high school senior when you can have a JUCO kid who's already played 2 years and still has 4 years of eligibility? So if you get injured in high school as a pitcher, your chance of getting anywhere good is going to be slim to none, from what these guys are saying, because they're getting a little bit smarter with the recruiting.
Wow.
And that was kind of like, whoa, that was kind of that kind of took me for a loop. So Jason, tell us about, in layman's terms, how your kinetic arm sleeve would help pitchers develop.
There's a lot of different ways we can use it. So from a young age, we'll see, kind of the arms are flying around. They're maybe not where we want them to be, but neurologically, their brain is still trying to figure out, how they can move efficiently, and it's figuring out what's available. So a really great thing that it does for young athletes, and we see it often, we get some great reviews on, how elbow pain or shoulder pain's gone, is because it's not going to let the arm lag behind. And then, if we think about growing pains, that's going to change how much ground reaction force we're getting, or how much we can use the body, which is going to make the arm work harder. So if we can offload stress there as well. And then if we think about like, the medial epicondylitis or little league elbow, avulsion fractures, because the strip goes past where those forearm flexors attach, it's almost like we automatically have a new muscle with more mechanical advantage to prevent that dynamic valgus, at the medial elbow. So at that age, it's great, because they can get those throws in. And I still think it's kind of ridiculous that we've got 5 and 6-year-olds using the same weight ball as a grown adult. So
Right.
we could have some progressions there, but obviously there's the baseball purists, but if you're a real purist, you'd be playing without a glove and pitching underhand, because that's how they started out. So blows that out of the water. But then as they get through those developmental years, with it helping there, When they get to be more high level, we've got guys that use it on recovery days, and they'll say, I feel like my recovery time's cut in half, because that next day they can go out and throw and condition their body from the ground up, and they're not going to have all that stress, so they can recover faster. We've got guys that like it on long toss days because you can condition your body from the ground up to be explosive for a longer period of time and not have that elevated stress on your arm. So that's one thing about, like, they blame the injuries on the pitch clock. You knew it was coming. You didn't show up one day and all of a sudden the pitch clock changed everything, right? You had no idea. It's total shock. So train your athletes better, train them to be more explosive. So that's one thing you can do, is ramp up workload as well. So ramp up workload, you could have them throw the first half or 2/3 of a pen with it, and then take it off for, the last little bit. We've got a lot of athletes that wore it to pitching games, or they'll throw their bullpens in it. So it's adjustable. So we've had a lot of guys coming off of injury or surgery using it, because it's the only way we can have progressive loading, kind of like after a knee surgery, training in water or an anti-gravity treadmill. So now we can have progressive loading and adjust it so they're taking on the full load of that arm, but not right away. I was looking at a return to throw program yesterday, and there's the amount of details that are left out, like how much time in between throws, what's the intensity, are you moving, what assessment did you do before that? So it's kind of a safeguard and a safety net. That's why we call it a muscle web, because you've got almost this muscle web that can protect you. So when those things aren't done, it can still keep the elbow stress lower on your arm. Because like we're saying, there's so much information out there, and unfortunately most of it's bad information. So if this can be used as a safeguard to help keep them healthy, then that's a big win. And if it keeps them playing, a couple more years in college or professionally, then that's another big win. But we're seeing a lot of position players using it because, like Kevin was saying, as far as how they're looking at ramping up their workload, or, just how they're training in general, I mean, they need help. So if this can hold us over until everybody kind of figures it out, that's going to be a huge win for baseball players and all throwing athletes.
That's great. So the adjustability, I think that's really interesting. So you can adjust it to basically change the level of assistance, so to speak. That's that's amazing. I think that's amazing.
So you can do it in two ways. So you can shift it towards your glove side. So if you got a shorter arm slot and you're not going as much into layback, the support will start sooner. Or if you want it to offload more of the decelerators. So we see that kind of, we can call it compensation or adaptation, where we end up with that, anterior tilt or that depressed scapula. Well, if this is like a muscle web that can help absorb that distraction force, so we're not overworking those decelerators, ending up with that anterior tilt, causing TOS symptoms, that's a huge win.
Huge. And by the way, I just want to make a comment real quick that the whole pitch clock thing, that's garbage. I think the average time between pitches in Major League Baseball is something like 16 seconds before that ever existed anyway. Yeah.
It's garbage. So Jason, how do they get in touch with you? How can a parent, what is your stuff?
Any of the emails going through the kineticarm.com, their social media. We've got Instagram, Facebook, and yeah, we'd love to help out and answer any questions and try to keep the athletes healthy.
All right. Well, hey man, thanks again for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again. We love the back and forth. I think we have. They probably don't want to hear us before we go on the air, but at least on the air we tone it down a little bit. But thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, always a great guest.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So Jason Colleran, the Kinetic Arm, please look it up. It is a great tool. And thanks again for coming on. Bye now. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who is, as you can tell, incredibly intelligent and really honed in to the three-letter word, or a few three-letter word, the what, the why, and the how, which are questions that are just go unanswered by many of these so-called gurus that are good marketers. Yeah, hey, I got to give it to them. They got good marketing budgets, or had good venture capitalists where they can market all these. But, here's Jason asking just some simple questions to major league teams, and they can't answer it. And they are in charge of multi-million-dollar athletes. And like we've explained on further shows, it's all coming out of your pocket. If you don't think that at the end of the day that when there's $150 million of injuries on the Yankees or the Red Sox, that eventually that's not raising ticket prices, you're insane, because it is.
And by the way, if you think throwing and the effect of the body and the arm of throwing, talk to Jason or listen to Jason and tell me how much you actually know. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy's like wealth of knowledge.
An
For sure.
encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, we filled with guests this week, which is great. If you have any questions, please like and subscribe to our
YouTube channel.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, our YouTube channel. That would be great. And you can email the show at info@proveitlive.com. And again, thank you for listening. We appreciate your time and attention.
Yeah. By the way, when you email us the topic you'd like for us to cover, throw it in there. If there's a guest you'd like to have us get on, we'll do our best to get them on. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, our guest is going to be Kevin Barr, a former Major League Baseball strength and conditioning coach who has tons of stuff to tell us about, all the secrets. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya.